overspending is a problem.
That's the problem, right?
But you just need to know what you're spending money on.
Exactly.
We talk about it on our podcast all the time. Show me where you spend your money, and I'll show you what's important to you. And these apps do a fantastic job of understanding or helping you get insight into what it is that you're spending your money on.
When I first got into this business, I was taught, and I knew this to be true, that Fidelity was the big player in the retirement plan space.
And they are.
But I you know what? I'm starting to see Empower so much more frequently. I'm wondering if they haven't overtaken them, how long is it going to be before they do? Because Empower is a major player, but there's my point. They're giving you this software, or they're charging you something. Actually, it's listed here as free. Okay, so they're giving it to you.
It's free.
All right. Why would they offer you something free? It's designed to capture you as a client and then start using some of their other services.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Retirement Planning Happy Hour. Eric Douglas, Chris Vaughn, Family Wealth Planning Partners out of Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for joining us for a little bit of a different episode today. Changing gears slightly, right? So we've been pretty much only exclusively doing bourbons on the podcast, right? But this is not the Retirement Planning Bourbon podcast. Right. It's the Happy Hour, right? And so we're going to go in a little bit of a different direction today. You had a beer that came out, a special edition beer that came out that you wanted to bring on, and so we're going to have ourselves a little bit of Dragon's Milk. I'll let you talk about that here in a moment. Topic for today, subscriptions. And this idea was born out of us talking about kind of the financial subscription apps that are available. We get asked from time to time, are these any good? Are these any good? Should we use them? Which ones should we use? And I have some thoughts on that and the way that I tell clients to use them, specifically pre-retirees should absolutely, I think, be using these because these can be a really valuable tool sometimes. But then we kind of were preparing, and we kind of started spearheading off into all kinds of different directions. We
went all the way down the rabbit hole.
And it basically the idea turned into, subscriptions are pretty much the way our economy is structured now. Yeah. Everything, we have a subscription-based economy for good and bad, pros and cons. And so we figured we kind of use the financial apps that offer subscription services and use that as a springboard into the subscription economy as a whole. So from there, I will let you introduce the beer, and we'll go forward with subscriptions after that.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to put a little disclaimer. I am not a bourbon expert. I like to play one on TV sometimes, if you will, but I know so many people who know so much more. I know even less about beer.
I'm definitely not a beer guy.
I know what I like and what I don't like. I have friends that could spin a yarn about all the different things that go into beer. I don't know. I know what I like, what I don't like. I know I like stouts. I know I like porters. I don't know the difference. When you talk about milk stouts and chocolate stouts and breakfast stouts,
sure,
they all sound awesome, right?
They sound the same to me.
I can't tell you the difference. So I say that in order to introduce this one. Dragon's Milk Triple Mash is what we're drinking. This is Dragon's Milk is a product that comes out of the New Holland Brewery up in Holland, Michigan. I love to tease my wife, who was born in Michigan, that Dragon's Milk is the best thing that ever came out of Michigan. I usually get in trouble when I say that. But anyway, first of all, my opinion.
We're in SEC country.
We are exactly, right? So Dragon's Milk, in my opinion, is the best, coolest name for a beer ever, right? Yeah. But there's a lot of different ones out there. I haven't had a that I disliked, but I certainly haven't tried them all. The Triple Mash is something that a friend of mine in a bourbon group suggested to me several years back. And the reason for that is it is a limited release. They do this once a year. I don't know how many of them they make. I know you're not going to find a lot. If you go to the big box stores and you know where to look, you might find, 20 or 30 cases. It's a 4-pack, right? And it sells for about $25, $26 for a 4-pack. This is not a cheap beer, okay? But it's also, this is the 2026 that we're looking at. It is also, this year's is 17% alcohol. Now, for context, Joe average beer is around 6. And this is the lowest alcohol content that I have personally ever seen in a triple mash.
Light beers are usually less than 6. Light beers are like around
that's
4.
Right. Once again, we're not beer experts. We just know what we like. So you don't drink this out of the bottle, in my opinion. We poured it in some Glencairn glasses. You almost drink this like a heavy whiskey pour, right? Yeah. Because it's just too potent. I have on many occasions had a whole one of these in one day. But it was on a Saturday while I was watching ball games, and it started at noon, and I finish it up after dinner time. You drink a little bit of it, you put it back in the fridge. I have a neat little thing here. You can find these on Amazon. It's literally a little bottle opener, but it's got a rubber seal on it. You put this on the bottle, it keeps its fizz. You can do this with Coke bottle too, I guess. Put it back in your fridge, and it can stay for months on end and still be good. So these are a great investment. But anyway,
I've never needed one of those before.
You will with this because it is because the alcohol content is so high with these types of beers. But I will also tell you this is the best beer I've ever had that was not handcrafted by somebody who makes unbelievably small batches of something. So early in the years when you can find it, buy you a 4-pack, make it last the whole year, which is not hard to do because it's potent. So that's what we're drinking today is Dragon's Milk Triple Mash. All right, let's talk about subscriptions.
Well, I think the whole conversation was going to start with financial apps, right? So we should probably start there. And why we recommend them, or maybe why we don't. I don't know. We haven't really talked too much about whether or not you recommend them. I do in a very specific case. But I figured we go through the ones that are the most common.
Okay.
Right, that we see and why you might use them as kind of like your ordinary, average, everyday investor or, just average, everyday American, right? Who wants to track your spending and kind of create a budget, right? Mm-hmm. The big one to start off with is Rocket Money. Yeah. That seems to be the biggest. I see the most ads for them, and I will disclose I use Rocket Money, and I do use the paid subscription version.
Right.
It's like $10 a month. Actually, you can choose. It's funny because when you sign up, you can choose what you pay. And so I just like I'll just choose
the subscription, right?
It's like if I do it, I'll do $10 a month. That's fine. But it's like between 6 and 12, I think, is what you can choose. There is a free version, but you don't get nearly as many features with the free version. Right. But essentially, Rocket Money, the way they advertise is to track your subscriptions. Mm-hmm. Because we're in a subscription-based economy, and they kind of made their bones, and the way that they advertise is use us to track your subscriptions, and we will go and then in turn cancel the subscriptions.
But you got to pay for a subscription to help get
rid of the other
subscriptions. Yeah. It's a vicious cycle.
But I will say it's interesting though because that's the way that they kind of advertise themselves. That's not really what they do. I mean, they do that. And I've gotten emails from them saying, hey, these are your subscriptions, and this looks like a new subscription, and they've offered to cancel them, and I've not canceled any of them because I'm aware of the ones that I'm paying for, so I haven't needed to use that service. But they do actually do a fantastic job of tracking your spending, and you can link all of your bank accounts up to them. And it's just a wonderful tool that I use. Once again, I'm in this business, but I use it just to track spending.
Right.
How much do I have coming in every month and how much do I have going out? Both my wife and I, we both own our own businesses.
Right.
So we have personal accounts and we have business accounts. And sometimes
that in itself can be difficult to track.
So sometimes just if you're looking for like a single space just to track, really just very specifically track spending and also to be able to categorize spending. So what categories are we spending the most money in? Travel, food, et cetera, right? And you can kind of customize those a little bit. But I use it for that. And for that purpose, it's absolutely fantastic. And it's the best one that I found that does that.
So let me ask you a question as a Gen Xer. I don't use any of these apps. I do recommend to my younger clients, you should be using something along these lines. We actually use an older program called Quicken. Right? That shows you my age. And believe it or not...
on your computer?
Yes, on my computer. In fact...
on your desktop?
Just to make it worse, my wife is so embedded with Quicken. She's tried to look at other things. She refuses to make the change because she just likes it.
Yeah.
We are a Mac family. We've had that discussion and made fun of each other. They don't make a good Mac version. So to this day, she has a fairly inexpensive HP laptop The only thing on it is Quicken, and it's the only thing she uses it for. That's how much she likes that. And I think the Quickens of the world are kind of the forerunners to this.
Sure.
And that leads me into a question. So for the people who are thinking about using one of these, and the 5 that we came up with were Rocket Money, You Need a Budget, Monarch Money, Empower Personal Dashboard, and Copilot Money. And full disclosure, I've heard of one of those before.
I've heard of all
our assistant started working on them.
EveryDollar is another one. That's the Ramsey.
Yes, now I'm familiar with the EveryDollar.
That's
one.
the Dave Ramsey budgeting app. That's a pretty good one.
My question to you, since you use one of these and you're familiar with them, if I was going to transition from something like an old-fashioned Quicken software on a desktop or a laptop computer, do these programs or some of these programs give me more than just a budget? Do they give me the ability to track things and to forecast? And do they give me the ability as a consumer to aggregate all the different financial things that I might have going on?
Oh, yeah. So I don't use it for this purpose, but you can use Rocket Money for this. You can also use, I know, Monarch Money. I looked at that one as well.
Okay.
They do a pretty good job of offering, that's like a kind of a full financial overview of your whole household, and you can kind of get a basic net worth balance sheet, if you will, net worth statement. Empower also does that. Empower is a financial services company, so that's what they're trying to do. Is Empower is trying to get you to start using them. They're trying to get embedded, but they're trying to show you your net worth, and then over time start to use them for financial services, right? But yeah, you can do. It's all very, very simple, and I can go back and look month by month over like the last year, and I can see what my spending was in specific months. And if I want to click on a month that says, oh, that month's spending looks kind of out of whack, what happened? I can click on it, and then I can categorize, or I could even filter it,
right,
or sort it, I guess I should say, by top to the highest to lowest spending, and see where I spent the most money on. And usually I say, oh yeah, I paid my taxes that month, or oh, we bought new furniture or something, that whatever it was. So I can see, okay, this is an outlier, and then I can very, very quickly and easily find out what the outlier was, or the explanation for the outlier, I should say. So it does a fantastic job of tracking spending in the past and categorizing that spending.
Okay.
Yes, you can. I don't use it for this because I don't necessarily need to set a budget because I kind of already know that in my head. But if I wanted to get very formal, I could set specific budgets, and it would send me alerts if my spending is going over budget.
Okay.
And
which I think for some people would be extremely useful.
Well, 100%, especially if you have trouble with spending.
Right. Yeah.
If you have spending issues. But that at its core, that's what most of these are for. Most of these are budget tools that have kind of evolved into other things.
Okay.
Like I said, this is a great way to track your spending. And I think for a lot of people, this is an easier way to do it on an app where it's always in your pocket. And that's just the way that most, especially younger consumers, that's the way they consume news, right? Everything is on an app. Everything's on your phone. And so it has to be a quick, easy, digital app-based interface to kind of get your attention.
Right.
And it has to be really easy and intuitive to use. And for what it's worth, Rocket Money does that. I've heard really good things about Monarch Money. I looked at it. I haven't actually used it, but I looked at it. I looked at Empower as well. And I've seen EveryDollar, which was the Ramsey edition. Yep. That's a pretty good budgeting tool. It's been years since I've looked at it in all disclosure, so I don't know if they've made any kind of updates or anything to it.
I'm sure they have, sure.
It was the flavor of the month 4 or 5 years
while,
ago. I don't know if it still is, to be perfectly blunt. But Rocket Money, I think right now is the biggest one because I see them everywhere. They're taking over the world, and they're,
And that, I think, is a good transition into the next point that I wanted to make. You mentioned this about Empower. Empower is a financial services company. They have really become a major player in the 401k scene,
retirement plan
scene. I don't know that they're the biggest, but if they're not, they're headed that way.
They're one of the biggest.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Well, they bought somebody. I forgot who they bought. Anyway.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, when I first got into this business, I was taught, and I knew this to be true, that Fidelity was the big player in the retirement plan space.
And they are.
But you know what? I'm starting to see Empower so much more frequently. I'm wondering if they haven't overtaken them, how long is it going to be before they do? Because Empower is a major player. But there's my point. They're giving you this software, or they're charging you something. Actually, it's listed here as free. Okay, so they're giving it to you.
It's free.
All right. why would they offer you something free? It's designed to capture you as a client and then start using some of their other services, right? The Rocket Money one, we talked about this one before we started recording. Rocket Money is part of a firm or a company that owns a bunch of other things that they do. And when we looked at all the companies that they own, it's clearly designed to capture you as a customer and then to keep you in their family or their suite of products throughout. In fact, you actually pointed this out. We ran a chat GPT search for what other companies do they own. It's clearly designed in the real estate space, is the one that you noticed, to get you in from start to finish through a real estate transaction, from shopping for real estate to selling real estate to pretty much everything but the title companies, and I'd be willing to bet they're trying to do that as well. I did not see that one on the list.
No, they have it. Yeah, they own a title company.
Okay, so there you go.
Well, they bought Redfin. This was because Rocket has really become a monster.
Yes, they have.
In the real estate space because they generate leads for realtors. They own a real estate firm. They also own a title company. They also own the Rocket Mortgage. Used to be Quicken, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
we had to look that one up. They actually sold that off.
Yeah, so I mean, so basically you can go through the entire home buying process and use nothing but a company that's affiliated with Rocket in some way, shape, or form. And that's what they're designed to do, keep you in their ecosystem, very, very similar to Apple. And we were talking about that as well. Once you get one Apple product, you're kind of screwed because now you're going to have
you got to get them all.
Now you got to get them all because they all talk to each other, right? And we'll kind of come back to that. But I think at the end of the day, because we're going to come back to whether or not these are worth it, but I think in this case specifically for a financial reporting application, I think for most people it's 100% worth it if you use it, of course, right?
Right.
But you should be using something like this. Because most people are not pulling up their bank accounts every month, and they're not reviewing their spending, and they're not seeing what they spend, and they're not reviewing their statements. You talked about previously, past generations used to balance their checkbook.
Yeah, we reconciled them every month. We used to do that, right?
Yeah, I'd never done that in my life,
right?
Because by the time I had my own checking accounts, this thing called the internet existed.
Wow!
And I could.
Did you feel those bus wheels run over me when he said that?
But so I can go online. I learned how to do it.
100% correct.
I learned how to do it, and I learned how to reconcile and balance a checkbook every month, but I never did it because it was all online. And people just aren't doing that anymore, right?
That's
They're going online, but really at the end of the day, most people probably aren't even going online that much except to maybe check their balance. They're not really looking at or reviewing their spending and in what categories their money is going to.
Which, of course, that's the argument for, on Rocket Money, for example.
Yeah.
One of their big selling points is we will find all of the subscriptions that you have and help you cancel the ones that you don't want. And to the layman, I remember the first time that I heard that commercial. And I thought, who doesn't know how many subscriptions they have? Then I started reviewing them in my head, and I went, oh, that would be me. Right.
Oh, I've had two that I've had to cancel that I didn't even know that I was paying for.
Exactly, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. That's going to be our next topic is the subscriptions and how many of them there are and why we get addicted to them. But your point there was we don't do things the way that we used to when it comes to tracking our money. I mean, once upon a time you had a physical checkbook and you had to write every transaction that you made, which was easy when all of your transactions were cash or check. Right? Because the checks and the checkbook are together. When the ATM card became popular and debit cards and things like that, that's when it started getting away from that and people wouldn't record that in their checkbook. So the software company said we have a solution. And that's when the Quickens of the world started appearing. It was a way of kind of putting everything in one place. But that became cumbersome because it still was the old-fashioned way of doing it. It was just digital. You still needed to download your statements from your bank or from your credit card companies. You still needed to go in and reconcile if you did it correctly. You'd still need to go in and reconcile every month. That is archaic at this point in time, to your point. And that is the reason why it is so important that you use some kind of tracking software or app, because the subscriptions that you're paying for are clearly getting out of hand. And I'm talking about myself. So I can only imagine what it's like for younger people who don't have that tracking system built in that they've been using.
that are used to, because I'm kind of that hybrid generation where I was of the I can't.
You're the exennial, we call it.
Yeah, I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest millennial or the youngest Gen X, depending upon what perspective. I'm 44, so I'm like right on the cutoff.
Right.
So whatever,
The Gen Xers like myself don't claim you, and the millennials say you're the old guy.
I 100% identify as Gen X.
Yes, he does.
You'll never hear me use the term identify as ever again, but if there's anything I do identify as, it's a Gen X.
It's a Gen Xer. Okay, yes. That's fair.
I will say that much. I definitely don't identify as a millennial, but I guess now millennials are getting called old. I've heard that.
Oh, yeah, the millennials are old now, and I just have to laugh at them and go, now you understand why I keep saying I hurt all the time. Now you're going, oh, my gosh, you're right. Everything hurts.
Yeah, they're all getting called unk
I walk
now,
funny for a week because I sneezed the wrong way, right?
Well, don't even. I woke up in the wrong position the other day, and I was sore for 2 days.
Exactly, so you couldn't move. There you go. All right,
but I will say, when it comes to these, whether it's Rocket Money, you need a budget, EveryDollar, Monarch. From my personal experience, Rocket Money is the best.
Okay,
I mean, as far as I know, Monarch Money is right up there. EveryDollar is also very, very good. I highly recommend everyone to be using some of these or one of these, just as not even necessarily to set a budget or anything, just so you know. Just so you know what your spending looks like. Yeah. You should always have insight into where your money is going. And sometimes it's really interesting, and I do this at the end of every year, and I sit my wife down, and it's kind of scary because I end up getting like really mad before I bring her in. I'm like, how did we spend this much money at Kroger? What are we buying at Kroger that costs this much money? What are we buying at how many times are we going to Starbucks? Yep. Are we really going? And so, but you look at what you spend at Starbucks in a year. It's like, are we really spending this much money on freaking coffee? Right? Or Sam's Club, or Kroger, or this gas stations, or whatever. But it's really interesting and insightful to understand where your money is going. And you need to know that. And it's good to develop a habit when you are young as to understanding where your money is going. Now, where I recommend clients to use these very, very specifically, pre-retirees.
Amen.
Pre-retirees, because when we are constructing an income plan, now it's one thing to talk about accumulation when clients are still working, but whenever you and we have not talked about this, right? We did not prep for this.
You blindsided me, but I'm thinking the same exact thing.
But when we're in a meeting with the client and we say and we ask, because we always very specifically need to know how much money are you spending, what are the first things that they go to every single time?
Oh, they go to their utilities, and they go to their food, and they go to the things that are the exact same amount every month, like their mortgage and things like that.
Mortgage, LG&E, water,
utilities,
cable bill.
Yep.
Right? Those four things are always the first thing, and they'll say, well, I spend this on this, I spend this on this. I'm like,
phone bill.
So, but then I go, how much do you spend on groceries? Well, maybe this much. How many times did you go out to eat last month? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe once a week or so. Okay, where do you go? Like, how much do you spend? And so you started drilling down, and then I was like, well, when was the last time you got new tires? When was the last time you had to replace a kitchen appliance?
Right.
And you start getting into some of those next level conversations because your budget isn't necessarily your fixed expenses every single month. You're going to have those, yes. But your budget also very specifically needs to include all the miscellaneous spending that isn't necessarily fixed, right? So you typically need to get tires, every 30,000, 60,000 miles, depending upon the kind of tires that you buy. So probably every couple of years you're having to buy new tires. That's a relatively big expense. Dishwashers crap out, right?
Yes, they do.
They're
designed to do that at this point now.
Kitchen appliances break. And actually, it's funny because I just moved, and one of the greatest things about my new house is I have such a better dishwasher because we were talking about replacing the dishwasher at the old place.
Okay, now let me go back for a second. We were talking about how millennials are now getting old, and you're at that kind of transition between millennial and Gen X. You're excited because of a dishwasher. You qualify as old at this point in time.
That qualifies me as a boomer.
You know what? I was very excited when we bought our last dishwasher. It matches the refrigerator. Right? It's amazing what you get excited about.
We can do another episode on our boomer tendencies, which is fine. But anyway, so I lost my train of thought. Thanks.
That's okay. That's okay.
But anyway, go back to pre-retirees and spending. That's what it was. Most pre-retirees, right? They're so used to getting paid,
Yep.
and generally speaking, they spend most of what they make, right?
Right.
When we construct an income plan, we have to know some very specific numbers.
Yep.
We have to know, obviously, Social Security, if there's like an annuity or any other kind of forms of income, like a real estate or anything else that's generating income, right? But most of the time, it's like Social Security and pensions.
Pensions occasionally, sure.
Okay, and then we need to know how much more money we need to draw from your investments to supplement your lifestyle. Your lifestyle is what you spend, okay? I don't like to use the term income. No one cares about their income. They care about how much money they spend. We need to know how, and this is what we talk about all the time with clients, is we need to create a spending category. Well, in order for us to know how much income you need to support your spending habits, we need to know how much you're spending. Right. And the vast majority of clients just don't know that number.
No,
specifically. They
absolutely.
have no clue.
I ask when I'm first sitting down with a new client, how much money do you need to make in retirement? I love throwing that question out there, and they just pull the most random numbers out.
Yeah.
And that's when I go back and I say, okay, well, how much are you spending now?
Yeah.
They don't know, and that's to your point.
And you can see the wheels start spinning.
Yes,
yeah,
it's imperative that you understand how much you're spending in pre-retirement so that you can build the retirement spending plan correctly.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to radically change just because you retired. People don't do that.
And you really can't look, because I always, I used to default, well, look at your last couple months worth of bank statements and see how much you're spending. But most people have like a credit card. Okay, well, how much are you spending on your credit card, right? Well, maybe it's a mix of both. Maybe your mortgage is coming out of here and your other miscellaneous spending is coming out of the credit card and whatever.
Right.
The reason why I recommend these apps now to pre-retirees specifically is because you can integrate all of those different accounts. You can integrate your bank account and your credit card accounts, and in some cases even your investment accounts. But really, I don't care so much about the investments. I care about the bank accounts and the credit cards, because I need to know what you have. That way I can track what you have coming in, but I can also track what you have going out.
That's right.
Right? And you can tell me very specifically, okay, I can pull up the last 12 months. This is what I spent, and I can see specifically what you spent over the last 12 months. And we can get some kind of an average based upon that. Because if we're looking at the last year, we're able to look at all of the randomness of life that's occurred in the last year. We can look at, this is when those outliers that I was talking about. We can see when you got the new tires. We can see when you had to replace the fridge. Right. When you got new flooring. All these different things that happen randomly that pop up throughout the course of life, that you can't really budget on a spreadsheet.
Right.
But you have to build in that into your budget. We have to, because it's going to happen. It's unavoidable.
Well, it also forces us to be honest with ourselves.
Yep.
You made a great example. Well, how often do you go out to eat? I don't know, once a week. It's my experience when I ask people questions like that, how much do you go out to eat? That's a great example. They will say, once a week, twice a month, whatever. But then when you look at, when they actually start tracking their spending and you look at it, okay, you're not going out to eat once a week. You're going out 1.5 times a week, right? Okay, let's do some simple math. Now, how much are you spending when you do that? I don't know, maybe $50 or $60. Let's have a look. No, as it turns out, you're dropping over $100 every time you go out, because when you go out, you have a cocktail and you order an appetizer, and then you get the entree and you go, well, I'm not going to get the expensive steak. I'm going to get the smaller one so that I don't spend so much money. And then you turn around and get a piece of cake or something for dessert. Yeah. And next thing you know, you've spent a higher dollar amount. It turns out you usually do it that way, and you're doing it more frequently than you thought. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying from a financial planning point of view, I need to know the way you really are living so that I can figure out how to supply the money to provide that lifestyle, not the one that you think you have. And I like having that kind of data to prove it.
Well, it's funny because one of my really good friends, who one of my favorite people in the world, love the guy, he's a client, and he's probably going to hear this. And that's fine. I'm so sorry for whatever he's about to say, right? And he's going to know I'm going to throw him under the bus, but he's he's a really good guy, and his wife is obviously fantastic too. But he was a bourbon collector, right? He was a bourbon guy, and this was several years ago. We were kind of going through kind of his budget and what he was spending, and we kind of got to the bourbon line. And he was, to be clear, he wasn't a bourbon drinker; he was a bourbon collector, connoisseur, right? But he was going out, and he kind of got into the hobby, and had kind of gotten the best of them, and we kind of got through. He told me he finally kind of started tracking how much he was actually spending. I'm not going to say the number.
Don't say the number.
I'm not going to say the number, but it was a good number. And he kind of started realizing, okay, I need to back off.
Back off, right?
Yeah, and and he did, and he put the money elsewhere and paid off some debt, and he's in a better spot financially, and he's doing awesome. He's doing great. Whatever, him and his wife are awesome, but. But all that to say, when you actually pay attention to, okay, when it kind of hits you in the face,
yep.
I'm not trying to be emotional. A lot of people tend to be emotional about this stuff, but you need facts, you need data. Yep. And once again, I am the most guilty person of this. I go through my credit card spending at the end of the year in American Express and Chase. I got credit cards at both companies, and they make it very, very easy to see this. This was your year-end summary. Just the sheer number alone of what we put on our credit card can sometimes hit you in the face. But then you start looking at the categories. It's like, did we really travel this much this year? Did we really do this? Did we really do Starbucks is always the easy one to pick on.
I was getting ready to go there. That's the one. Do we really spend this much money on coffee?
But going out restaurants is the other one.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, do we really go out to eat? But it's not even necessarily going out to eat. That also includes like trips to Qdoba on the way home on a Friday night, right? Things like that. But when you look at it, it kind of will hit you in the face, and it's good because you need true data. You need to understand the facts. You need to know the first part of diagnosing or creating a solution is diagnosing the problem, right? And it's not spending is not a problem. I want to be very, very specific because this is
overspending.
Overspending is a problem.
That's the problem, right?
But you just need to know what you're spending money on.
Exactly.
We talk about it on our podcast all the time. Show me where you spend your money, and I'll show you what's important to you. Yeah. And these apps do a fantastic job of understanding or helping you get insight into what it is that you're spending your money on. It's helped me. And once again, I'm in the business. I watch this stuff for a living. I track it, but it helps me to track my spending on a personal level. Yep. So that's why I use it, and it's very, very good. And that's why everybody should be using one of these types of apps, even if it does cost a few bucks for a subscription, because this is actually far more valuable than probably most of the other subscription services that you are currently subscribing to. That you're, can use one of these subscription services to cancel all the other ones.
Right now, somebody is listening to this and say, let's play a drinking game. You have to take a drink every time one of them says subscription.
I'm like tripping over myself right now, yeah.
All right, so I want to move on. We've pounded on the fact that some type of tracking software or app is very, very important. What I would suggest to people in summary is there's a lot of them out there. What's good for me and what's good for you may not be the same thing. So do a little research. Pretty much everything has some kind of free trial for you to kind of play around with it, see if you like the way that it's laid out or so on and so forth. What I want to move into is the type of subscription services that we're using. And because there are so many of them, you said it so well, we are in a subscription-based economy now. Why it is that it's possible for us to have subscriptions that we forget about, right? So let's talk about some of the different ones that are out there. We've got a list of, Annalise came up with only 7 for us. There's probably hundreds more, but I think she hit some pretty big ones here. Streaming, this is one that hit me recently.
Well, this is the biggest one.
I think so too.
Because I think just the way that nobody used cable, and I was an innovator on this, right? I cut cable like a decade ago. I think it was a decade ago, actually, when streaming services first started coming out. My kids, who just graduated 8th grade, my twins, that when they were young, we quickly realized everything that they were watching was on Netflix or I don't know, Hulu or one of the other streaming services that we had. We still had cable at the time, but they never watched it. And because we had infant twins we weren't watching TV either because we had no time. And when we did have time, we were trying to sleep. So cable was never getting used. And I got one of those bills, they increase the price every year. Mm-hmm. And then every year you had to go through this rigmarole where it was like, okay, I'm going to call in, and I saw my price just went up, and I want to go back to the introductory rate. And I used to do this every year, and every year it was this whole thing that we had to go through.
It was a game that we played.
And it was a game that we played. And okay, well, since you're threatening to leave, we'll lower your price and blah, 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 right? Well, I happened to get the increase in price, and I went to call Spectrum, Insight, I think they were at the time, whatever, I don't know. But I called them, and they weren't going to lower the price back to the introductory rate. And I just, spur of the moment, I just decided to cancel. Just spur of the moment. I was like, I'm not paying for this. I'm not going to pay this increase. I'm barely using the cable anymore. Mm-hmm. Every time I turn on TV, I'm watching like Netflix or something. And I'd kind of already started to do research around cutting the cord. Now with that came such a fragmentation of the entertainment culture, I guess, or, the way that all the different streaming services that exist now, even more so 5-6 years ago. Right. Every company has their own streaming services. Every company releases content specifically on their streaming service.
And therein lies my biggest difficulty right there.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because there's definitely stuff that I hear about in culture and pop culture that I'm just not in tune to because I just kind of refuse to pay for another streaming service.
First of all, you absolutely were an innovator on this one. You cut the cable long before I did. I've since done that. But I was having this conversation with my wife, 2 or 3 nights ago. We were going to sit down and eat dinner. It's just the two of us. And she said, well, put something on the TV that you want to watch, which is what she always says, right? Because she's not going to pay any attention anyway. And I got on, we use Hulu for TV. Well, I didn't want to watch anything live. The only thing live at the time was news. Yeah. I don't want to watch any more news. I'm inundated with it as it is. So I start flipping through. There's nothing on I want to watch. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I got out of Hulu and I went to Netflix. There's nothing on Netflix that I wanted to watch, so I get out of that and I looked at Prime Video.
There's a lot of stuff on Netflix too. So.
And yes, and that's the point. There's so much. Yeah. I went through Prime Video. There was nothing I wanted to watch. I switched over to Paramount. There was nothing I wanted to watch, and it dawned on me the number of subscriptions that I pay to watch TV or movies
that you don't use. Yeah,
and we don't watch that much TV in our house, and that was when I went, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. So, and I think this is a good lead into how we get into a subscription and we don't realize that we're still paying it. Okay. So we picked up Paramount because we wanted to start watching Yellowstone. That was the thing that everybody talked about. And we finished watching Yellowstone.
It was awesome.
I think that was the
awesome
one that
for about 3 seasons or so.
I'm going to be real honest. I made it through the whole thing. I loved every bit of it. Yes, certain seasons were better than other. But then we went through the prequel, and then we went through the prequel to that. My wife is now totally addicted to it's the newest version of it. Actually, there's a couple of them.
Well, the new one just came out, the spinoff.
Well, there's 2. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. There's
U.S. Marshals and Dutton Ranch.
U.S. Marshals, and then the one with the couple, I can't remember the names, Beth and Rip. They're down in Texas somewhere.
Dutton Ranch, yeah.
Dutton Ranch, thank you. Well, she's watching both of them. I don't even know what services they're on. I'm not watching them. I'm that guy that I'm going to wait till wintertime when it's miserable outside, and the last thing I want to do is go outside, and I will binge watch a whole season on a Saturday when there's no good football games on or anything. But that's the reason we got Paramount. And then at one point in time, we got, it might have been Paramount, it might have been something else, to watch the Olympics a few years back. And realized we'd had it for over a year. The Olympics were 2 weeks.
That was Peacock.
Right, yeah Peacock, thank you. I got Netflix because I am an auto racing fan. I have been since I was a little kid. And I got to the point where I just don't enjoy NASCAR anymore. So my son and I started getting into F1. And then they came out with the F1 show, whatever it was called. I haven't watched that in 3 years. I still have the Netflix subscription. Yeah. And therein lies the point. You get this because of a show or a couple of things that you wanted to watch. And then you never turn it off.
And the price is so attractive.
The price is, it's right. It's cheap because it's only a few dollars a month. until you realize you've got 4, 5, 6, 7 different subscriptions. You're not watching them. Yeah. You know, this is just not how I entertain myself. The only thing that I watch consistently on TV, other than binging something like this, is when it's football season, and I enjoy baseball games too. I don't watch that much of it, right? That's where I think these kind of things get you in trouble, is you get so many of them. We don't reconcile a checkbook the way we used to, where you're forced to look at your expenditures every single month. And next thing you know...
Which is why I like those financial apps.
That's a perfect example of how dangerous subscriptions are. They're awesome because I have access to so much. And they're horrible because I'm still not accessing it. We've been saying this since TV was invented. There's nothing on TV.
Well, they're dangerous because they're really not that expensive for 1 month.
Right.
But they compound upon themselves, right? And you add a few on top of one another. I'll even add...
And then they raise the price $1 or $2 per month, and you go, hey, fine, I don't care.
Yeah. Netflix has raised their price like every year. I don't know how many years. That is the one that I keep, or one of them that I keep. And I don't have that many, but at one point, I'm guilty of this too. I was going through looking at bank statements, and I saw stars on my bank statement, and I'm like, stars? When did I start subscribing?
Like the movie service Stars?
Yeah. Like the movie service Stars. I'm like, when did I start subscribing to Stars? I've never watched this in my life. Somehow, I don't know if it was me or if it was a kid, but somebody on our Amazon Fire Stick was, watching TV or something. Somebody must have hit a button and subscribed through Amazon to the Stars channel on the Amazon Fire Stick that we have on one of our TVs. And I don't know how it happened. I know I don't think that I did it. I might have, but I don't think that I did. But somebody did.
And you've got kids in your house, just like most of us do. And it's not that they're doing anything wrong on purpose. It's that they don't realize that they've just gotten you into a subscription.
So I don't know, but somehow I paid. I think it was like 5 months. Like,
wow.
It's like $10-11 a month for like 5 months of Stars. I didn't watch a single thing on. I didn't even open the app. I didn't even know that I was paying for it. But I happened to get an Amazon receipt in my email, and I looked at the receipt one day. Somehow I'd missed the 4 or 5 months previous to that, but I happened to look at a receipt, and I'm like, Stars. So I'm as guilty of it, and if I'm guilty of it, and I'm someone who relatively pays attention to this stuff.
You track this.
And I will say this was before I had Rocket Money, so that was part of it too. But I'm relatively educated, relatively smart guy, kinda. I don't know, maybe not really, but
you're susceptible to it. I'm
just as susceptible to it as well, right? So. I still, you're talking about what you have. I have Hulu too. The only reason I have Hulu is because it's part of the Disney Plus bundle. The only reason I have Disney Plus is because my daughter watches the same 4 shows over and over again. And my son watches like the superhero the Marvel movies. I don't ever watch Disney Plus. My kids do. That's the only reason that we have it.
That's a great example though. The Hulu package, I got that years ago, and then they said, oh, by the way, we're going to include Disney Plus and ESPN. And I'm like, great. And I just moved on. Yeah. And then a year or two later, they upped the price because we were getting all those. Oh, okay, fine. And next thing you know, I'm paying a whole lot more per month than what I used to.
I had,
and I didn't even think about it.
Well, I had Peacock. The only reason I knew the Olympics were on Peacock, because I had Peacock for over a year. Because I think WrestleMania was on Peacock or something. And so it's like, all right, $5, I'll subscribe. I'll watch WrestleMania. It'll be fun. And then I never canceled. And I knew that I subscribed, but I just never went back and canceled. I was like, oh, well, there's all this other stuff that one day I'll watch. And I think, we spend more time creating a watch list than actually watching anything on our watch list. And so I created a watch list, and I was like, oh, I'll just come back and watch all this stuff. I never came back and watched any of it. And so
I want to wrap that one up because there's so many we want to get to, and I don't want to go too long. But I think the main thing here is that the modern culture, when it comes to streaming, and this is very true for music too, they do things to capture us. Right? They pay for this service or this sport or what was the boxing match that was a total waste a couple of years ago, and they got you to buy that service. and then you're stuck on that service for a long period of time and you don't even realize it. And they're really, really good at selling their product. So if you think you're immune, you're not, right? We're all very guilty of this. I want to move on just for time purposes. I want to move on to software, which is down the list a little bit. So in this exercise that my wife and I were going through, looking at how many subscriptions we had, and I'm suddenly going, maybe I'm going to need to go get Rocket Money or something because I'm much worse than I thought I was, and I'm not the target audience. I'm not that younger crowd at this point. I realized that I've been paying for Norton antivirus software and all the stuff that goes along with it. I have 2 different accounts, and I've been paying on both of them for years.
Yeah.
Right? So I've got one that it's a great one. It's a Ultimate or whatever they call it. I pay $20 a month for that. The business pays for it.
I do too.
Right?
Yeah.
Great. But we also had a personal one, and I didn't even realize that we had both. And they're covering the same things. They do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But I was paying, $20 a month for the one for the business, and I was paying another, I think it was $5 a month. Years.
Yeah.
Oh, $5 a month is not a big deal. Add it up over years and see how big of a deal that is. I have another one. I, at one point in time, was using a device for taking notes for client meetings. And it was a digital device, but I won't say the name, that's not fair. But you know which one I'm talking about. And I would write my notes down on this device, and there was a subscription fee in order to store all this stuff in secure iCloud storage, $2.99 a month.
Yeah.
Right? I got the notice that said, because of just the expense of doing things, we're raising our fee to $3.99 a month. And I went, why am I getting that notice? And I looked, you know what? I've been paying $3 a month for probably 2 years on that after I stopped using it because we switched over to an AI note taker here in our firm.
Yeah.
I don't even use that anymore.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it's like, once again.
You were paying for that subscription?
Every single month.
I never did that.
I'm very upset with myself because I've fallen into that same trap so many people have. I am not going to tell you the amount of money that I've discovered in subscriptions that I'm paying that I don't use because I haven't finished going through the list yet. But, software is another one we get into. Cloud storage, I would say that's kind of the same thing.
So cloud storage, I could go on a
my
rant
gosh.
about that one because I get an email every month from Apple about the storage that I'm paying for, and I don't even know what it is.
Yep.
It's like $2 a month.
Whatever the dollar amount is.
But something, I guess, all the photos and going to the cloud
Exactly.
somewhere. I don't know, but
they're in the cloud somewhere. What a great phrase. Yes, I get the same one. You upgrade it, and you think, oh, it's only a couple of dollars a month. I think that's the real danger of subscriptions. It's only a couple of dollars a month. Yeah. Right? I don't particularly care what your income level is. Only a couple of dollars a month adds up.
Magnified by
however many of these you're doing over years, right? That's where I really feel like the danger in subscription services is that they're not that expensive, but they're recurring. We were talking before we started recording, you were talking about how at one point in time you had all of the music that you had to purchase a CD to get that, right? And there's a Gen X joke that this is the generation who had to buy the album. Then we had to replace our collection with cassettes and then with CDs and now streaming. It's a great idea in that you no longer have to pay $30, $40, $50 or whatever the rate would be at this point in time for a CD to buy 10 songs when you really only wanted 2 or 3 of them, right? The streaming service is so much cheaper than buying CDs as you go. However, now you're paying that fee every month in and month out. We had one, we use Apple Music because we're one of those Apple families that once you're in, they own you. Yeah. We're a great example of that. But my son was having trouble getting his music to work on his iPhone, I might add. So my wife, trying to placate him, she got the Amazon Prime Music service just for him. Now, literally, it's like, would you go to the Genius Bar and get this fixed, right? But to make ease of operation, we got another subscription. That went on for almost a year. It's so easy to get addicted to these things and not realize just how much money you're spending. And that's the danger of the subscription services, is they're so awesome and they're so easy to use and they're so cheap.
Well, that's what struck me because, like I said, I just moved recently. And you go through, you're packing up a house that you lived in for a long time, and you go through all your old junk, and you find this stuff that you haven't touched in years. And some of that stuff, there was a drawer of old CDs and DVDs, right? And for a while, I was of the generation where, you go to Blockbuster before it closed down, and you go to the used DVD section, and you could buy DVDs for like $2 a pop. Mm-hmm. And you filled up your DVD collection, and you had your little storage tower next to your entertainment center, and you had all the DVDs you could ever want, to watch. And you buy them, and you own them. Same thing with CDs. Like you had a CD tower, right? Back when...
Or you had the thing on your visor in your car.
Literally, one of the worst days of my life was when someone broke into my car. They took my car stereo, did not care. I had one of those books with like 300 CDs in it, and I had a bunch of mixed CDs. This was in my early 20s, like right after college. This is well before any kind of streaming service. So I lost like 300, my big 300 booklet of CDs. I lost the whole thing. I was more upset about that. I did not care about getting broken into, didn't care about any cash that was taken, didn't care about my car stereo. I cared about that book of CDs. I was like, I'll never be able to get that back. Well, now I have.
You have it all back now.
It took well over a decade.
But you pay for it every month forever.
But that's the thing about streaming or just subscription services in general, and this is kind of a greater commentary on like our society, is nobody owns anything.
Yeah.
We lease, we rent, but we don't really own. And I know artists specifically, if you ever talk to artists, musicians, and actors and stuff like that, they talk about this a lot, that they produce art, but nobody buys it. Nobody owns it. Nope. They just rent it. And we were all guilty. This is just
we are.
This is the economy that we're in. And so it's, it's not worth it for me to go buy a CD, especially if I'm, half the songs on the CD are going to suck. I only want half, there's only half of the songs on the CD I ever want to listen to. Well, with a subscription service to a music, I use Amazon Music as well because I was already a Prime member, so I got a discount on the Amazon Music. That's why I'm on there and not Apple. But, I can just choose the songs. I don't have to choose the whole album. I can just get the songs. Mm-hmm. And it's a relatively nominal fee when you look at it on a monthly basis relative to me going out and buying CDs every month for new music, which is what I used to do. I remember going to I used to walk to the mall. Back when I was a teenager, I used to walk to the mall or ride my bike to the mall. Yeah.
No comment.
But they had the record stores, and you could go listen to like CDs when they first came out, and you determine which ones you wanted to buy. Mm-hmm. Like I had $30. Which 2 CDs am I going to buy? 2-3 CDs I'm going to get. So I'm aging myself.
I'm aging myself even more. When we went to the record store, they called it a record store because that's where they had records, not CDs, not cassettes. They had records. So we've got a lot more material that we could cover on this, but we're starting to run up against a little bit of a time restriction. So I want to start kind of summarizing this. Maybe we'll do a part 2 if we want to. But the subscription-based economy is maybe one of the biggest double-edged swords that I think I've ever seen. It is so easy to get all these different subscriptions. It is so much better than going out. Yes, we're nostalgic about going to the record store and getting a CD. But to your point, how many CDs did you buy that you liked every single song?
None.
No, there were a few, and they were called greatest hits albums, which you didn't need to buy because you already had all the other albums, right? But you bought it because it had the new song on it. It certainly prevents you from having to go out and do that. It makes it easy to get something new. How many times have you heard about a movie or a TV show or a piece of music or an audiobook or whatever, and you downloaded it and were listening to it in less than 60 seconds?
Yeah. That's
one of the real advantages of the subscription environment. One of the real disadvantages, in my opinion, is just how easy it is. And I'm getting into a different type of service, and this is really not the subscription thing. The ease of operation is also the biggest detriment. It's how you get yourselves in trouble. And I was telling before we got on here, Sunday morning I had to work in our church. I was running a few minutes late. I had to be there, and I knew I was not going to make it through 4.5 hours without anything to eat. So I swung by a McDonald's on the way there real quick just to get an Egg McMuffin. There were 4 different people inside from DoorDash waiting to pick up the orders to take somebody. Ease is great, but when ease becomes something that you're spending excessive amounts of money on something that is not worthy of that excessive amount of money, I think that's where people get themselves in so much trouble. Because it's easy. Yeah, convenience is an easy thing to get addicted to. So that would be my big caution. And the fact that we simply are not tracking how much money we're spending on all these subscriptions. That's where we get ourselves into trouble. That's where you could be in so much better financial place if you would cut out one of them, much less the 3 or 4 that you're not using that frequently.
Well, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to kind of summarize that. It's just, this is the reality that we live in. I'm not trying to go back to the 1950s. It is the reality that we live in, and it is really useful. I love being able to get something quick, but it is also very dangerous. So we need to exercise a little discretion and caution when it comes to how we use this modern economy.
So this is why, because you're talking about looking to cancel subscriptions, and we used Starbucks before as an easy kind of punch.
We picked on them, sure.
They're kind of a punching bag, and everyone in our industry kind of uses them for whatever reason. But it's the idea of paying that much money for coffee, right? And the reason why I use them as an analogy is not to say that you shouldn't go to Starbucks. Go to Starbucks.
Sure.
I go to Starbucks. It's convenient. It's easy. If I need a coffee and I'm out and about, that's usually the first place to go because they're everywhere. I have no problem with Starbucks, and I spend, like I just told you, I go through my credit card. I've spent plenty of money at Starbucks. This is not any Starbucks hate or any coffee shop. Doesn't matter which one. The point is, if you are someone who's trying to analyze your spending, going back to kind of the purpose of this show,
right.
If you're trying to analyze your spending and find places to cut costs, if you can't start with the easy stuff, yes, obviously, you shouldn't be going out and buying cars you shouldn't afford. You shouldn't be going out and buying apartments you can't afford and spending money on restaurants you shouldn't be going out to. But if you can't start with the easy stuff, if you can't cut out Starbucks, if you can't cut out a couple of subscription services, that says more about the problem within you, right? The problem is far deeper than those things. Right? If you're going to start cutting out anything, you have to start small. You have to take baby steps. And, you have to crawl before you can walk before you can run. Cutting out subscription services, cutting out Starbucks, cutting out, trips to, I don't know, Morton's Steakhouse downtown, right? Those are the baby steps, right?
Right.
Before you get to the bigger things that you can cut out, before you get to the bigger monthly payments that you might have. That's why we use them as examples, not to say that they're all bad. I just got done telling you should use Rocket Money or some other type of financial-based software subscription services because it will help you, right? But you have to use it, just like a gym membership. Gym memberships, I mean, I guess you could say they're a subscription service. You usually pay a monthly fee.
Very much so, right.
But I will always have a gym membership.
But if you don't go on a regular basis and actually do what you're supposed to do in the gym, it's a waste of money.
It's also, I own a gym, by the way. That's my wife's business. I'm an owner of a gym, right? And it's 100% worth it if you're using it.
Right.
You should go use your gym membership. AI is not going to fix you being able to go to a gym. That's kind of an AI-proof industry, I should add, for whatever it's worth. But, if you're going to spend the money on these things, you should be using them. And if you're not using them, you should absolutely cut them out. But that's why it's important. You need to be able to start small, with your spending. And you have to understand and intuitively understand where your money is going. You need insight into what you are spending money on in order to, coming back to our world, in order to create a sustainable, realistic income plan that will support your lifestyle.
Hallelujah. I am not going to follow that up because I don't think I could say it better. So let's For those of you who are not watching, you're just listening.
We're
there
done.
was a 12-ounce bottle of 17% beer sitting on this table. It is now empty. The two glasses that we are drinking out of, they are empty. There's a little color in the bottom of them, and I'm sitting there going, would it look really bad if I tried to get the rest of that out of there? So I think it's safe to say you liked it, but let's make some comments about it.
So this was a bourbon barrel aged stout.
Yes,
okay, so that's what I was going to ask.
It is aged, so it's a stout beer, and we already talked about. I can't tell you the difference between a stout and a porter. Yeah. I can tell you the difference between those and a Pilsner.
It's the heavier stuff. Yeah.
This stuff is almost black when you pour it out. It looks like motor oil.
Yeah.
But this particular one is aged in used bourbon barrels for 1 year before they bottle it and send it out to market.
Yeah, similar to like Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale, which
I think, you know what, if we're going to start doing some other things other than bourbon on here, some of the beers that we might do, absolutely, we need to do Kentucky Bourbon Barrel.
That's a great one. I drink that one.
Gosh,
yeah, and I'm not a big beer drinker because I don't like most beers. The ones and I didn't really know this, but apparently we have this in common. I like porters and stouts.
Yep.
So if I'm at a bar, that's usually what I'm ordering is a porter or a stout.
Exactly.
I usually don't waste my time with light beers and American Pilsners, and I don't care. It's a wasted. To me, it's a wasted calorie. It doesn't taste that great.
If that's all they have, I'm going to order a Coke.
Yeah,
to be really honest with you.
So I don't. There's no point. I'm not going to drink beer to get drunk. So and I just don't drink beer very often, right? So when I do, though, porters and stouts are pretty much exclusively what I drink. So yeah, this is fantastic.
Fantastic. I will tell you that this is true of most porters that I've ever had. There is a lot of chocolate in that flavor, but it's not like eating a candy bar chocolate. It's a different kind of flavor, more of a cocoa flavor. I love this. I was actually at an event last night. It was a bourbon event, but the same guy that got me hooked on the Dragon's Milk Triple Mash, he brought something special from some event that he'd been to. It was also a stout. I don't even want to know what the alcohol content was on it because when he opened it, it hissed at us. It was a bottle with wax seal on it. I said, "How much is a bottle of that?" And he said, "It's about $70 a bottle for a beer." Now this is a big bottle, but still, we tasted it, and it tasted just like this did, except there was more of everything. Lots of chocolate. This is with this one as well. There's a little bit of a raspberry flavor in there. And then your traditional bourbon oaky flavors come through. That's from the aging process. This is not for everybody.
No.
You and I did not know this about each other, but we both like the same types of beers. But before we started filming, we poured our first glass. We took it out to our assistant Annalise out there who put our list together today. She said, "Yes, I like beer." She took one sniff and made a really, really bad face and said, "Nope, I'm out." So this is not for everybody.
Yeah.
But for the right crowd, this is a fantastic drink.
Well, as for the fact that it's so heavy, kind of keeps you from drinking too much.
It keeps you from drinking too much,
yeah,
right?
So.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, all right.
Well, with that being said, that's probably a pretty good place to wrap up. So thanks for listening to us ramble about the subscription economy and all the things that are good and bad about it. So if anything that we say today here resonates with you or any of our content you think would be relevant to anybody that you know, we would greatly appreciate it if you could share it with those that you love and adore. Thanks for listening to us, and until next time.